Last week, what we talked about was the oneness of God and unity. And the idea that the oneness of God from a Jewish perspective is a very, very complex concept. Because it means everything comes from God. Which means that the diversity of life comes from God, including good and evil. Okay? The fact is that we talked about Tov and Ra, and I said that Tov was basically a universal or unified perception of life, and Ra was really when you see every aspect of life in a vacuum. That the reason what Ra deals with is when you put every drive in a vacuum. So you take every drive and you treat it by itself, all by itself. That really is what we mean by Ra. Even good drives, if they're only seen in a vacuum, they're part of the technical definition of Ra. Tov is when you have a unified understanding of existence and the unity of God. And that really shows the greatness of the oneness of God. The greatness of the oneness of God comes from the fact that we have a recognition of the spectrum of existence. The greater the diversity of life, the greater is our understanding of how remarkable is the oneness of God. So the more we see the vast enormity of human existence, the vast enormity of reality, all the different parts and all the different sides to reality, the more we understand what it must mean to put it all together under the oneness of God and the absolute awesomeness of that oneness. Now, as a result of what I was saying was, there was a recognition among, and people mention this, is that a lot of times when people try to develop concepts of good and evil, or concept of God, basically what you do is you do so by chopping up. You do so by limiting. You basically say this is good and this is not, and therefore you say this good should override this not good. So what happens is you create the sense of oneness through taking away parts of existence. So the example I gave was, let's say, in terms of unity of communism. The way communism tries to develop unity is by limiting individuality. Okay? It tries to chop things down. So the less diversity you have, the more you're able to create this sense of a simplistic unity. This happens through ideas of how we understand certain values. So, for example, in Christianity or Catholicism, let's be more specific with Catholicism, they have a problem with the sexual drive because the sexual drive is supposed to have an aspect of love and combination, but it also has a selfish aspect to it. A person is trying to fulfill a drive. So therefore, Catholicism has a problem with sexual love because it's a love that's not just selfless. And to them, they don't know how to combine selfishness and selflessness. Okay? In the concept of love. And therefore, they have real... That's why you have arguments of celibacy and so forth, because how can this be love when you're also driven to satisfy a need in yourself? Fact is that Judaism is a completely different understanding of it, and it understands that there's value in self-realization as well. That it's not just about selflessness. There's an aspect of self, and the fact is it comes together, and so forth and so forth. So it's a different definition of love, and so forth. But the point is that it really deals in terms of drives where basically what happens a lot of times with good and evil is the idea that you like to have like the little devil, the little angel, and you don't like dealing with, a lot of people don't like dealing with the complexity. So what happens is The good drives are defined in black and white room, and other drives are defined in black and white. And therefore, what happens is usually you find battles of this drive versus that drive, and this is the good drive, and that's the bad drive, and so forth. And one of the things I came up from last week is I pointed out that really drives that are not necessarily understood to be black and white good drives may have a good aspect to it, and drives that don't necessarily drives that we would see to be more good can have things we have to be careful about. The fact is, we have to be more understanding of the challenges we have in each of our drives and so forth. So afterwards what came out is an understanding that some people try to impose the good drive by saying this is good and try to impose it on others, like that the way you impose a good drive is the good drive is imposed on the bad drive, and people sort of said that they felt that what I was saying, that I was giving some value to drives that they thought did have some good aspect in their life, and that they should be encouraged with those drives. Fact is that is part of the message. A lot of times I find with individuals that in this world that basically tries to define things in very black and white terms, every drive or every interest of theirs has to be defined black and white, and that, it's like a guy has an interest in baseball, well, that's Yetzer Hara, right? Like you find with let's say issues of sneas, a woman or a man wants to dress in just in a way that's somewhat attractive. That's Yetzer Hara. So the simple thing, like sneas is a good example of it. The burqa, right? That's a simplistic understanding of sneas. Because what's the best form of sneas? To be totally not attractive. The truth of the matter is, right? We wear a burqa, right? And there was a case in somewhere in Eretz Yisrael where there were some frum women who started walking around in burqas. Because listen, we should also truth of the matter is, there was a case like that where a husband tried to tell his wife stop doing it, and she wouldn't listen to him. And he basically said, we're going to Bezdin, ask the Bezdin. The Bezdin said, listen to your husband, don't dress like this. Finally, in the end, the woman wouldn't listen to the Bezdin either. The Bezdin then said to the husband, listen, I don't know what to do, maybe you should divorce her. I mean, it was really crazy. The fact of the matter is that, because it's black and white, the truth is that there's a drive to be attractive. You have a drive to present yourself a certain way in public. It's not necessarily a bad drive. It's a bad drive if you don't dress properly, but it's not. There's certain ways of doing it, and then there comes in and there's actually I might as well say it's a kosher tube. There's actually a bunch of my shur amongst sneas, which points out that there's a correct way to dress in an attractive fashion. And sneas does include the concept of attractiveness in a certain way. But the fact is, and you can see my kosher tubes on that, kosher tube videos on that. But the fact is that people want black and white answers, and fact is that I remember giving Shirley this input, and women were starting to feel guilty. They just wanted to, be somewhat attractive. And I said, no, I understand that drive. It's a human drive. And they said, gee, and they appreciated that. And then you understand how you balance out. So last week, there were people who came over to me and said, you made me feel better about certain drives that I have. And that was part of the lesson. But at the same point in time, what people didn't recognize is I was also challenging them. Because when you believe in the oneness of God, you also have to believe in drives that challenge you. So, for example, if you're a strong, I've said this before, if you're, let's say, a real strong Tzionist, right, go learn the Torah of the Satmar Rav. Why? Because he'll challenge you. I'm not saying that Satmar Rav's right. I'm not saying that you have to follow him, but go learn his Torah. because you should understand the differing viewpoints. And then you take your stand. Or then you understand that your viewpoint balanced with understanding other viewpoints. And if you're a real, anti-Israel person, like a real, the Torah character person, go learn the Torah of Kook. Then you'll start understanding the complexity, and that really comes out of the concept of oneness. Is that ideas live within. It's interesting, in a dialectic, there's a tension between ideas. And the truth is, the oneness of God creates the idea that the dialectic comes together. So I wanted to point that out, because a lot of people, because what happens in our world when you have so much dichotomy, black and white, I'm right, you're wrong. What has to develop is a sense of an understanding that you do have some ideas. Certain people who are put down, sometimes their ideas need some validity, and then you also have to recognize that there are differing ideas, and you start with living with the complexity of this dialectic. That takes you in the real path to the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah, you seemed you wanted to say something.
No.
Okay. That's something that I wanted to point out from last week. I felt that at the end of last week, people were telling me, I see, that they felt a certain strength and development of certain ideas that they had. But on the other hand, they also were somewhat dismissive of contrary ideas.
So
you need both.
So what is really the idea of the Satan?
From a Jewish perspective?
From a Jewish perspective.
Satan is an angel whose job is to be the prosecuting attorney. That's just Satan's job. Okay, and the fact is, from our perspective, he's to keep us on our toes. I mean, something. When I say he's the prosecuting attorney, I don't know what happens after Mav Estrim. I don't know what happens up in Shemayim. So I have to understand from my perspective. There are things that keep me on my toes. I should look at certain things I do and say, there's a reason I do them, and maybe there's validity in it. I should look at them and say, Joe, maybe there's certain things wrong with it. Maybe I do this, maybe I do that. And the fact is that, and it's not always so simple. People think there's simple answers. Sometimes, it's like you need to relax. So there's a TV show that really relaxes you. Let's say, right? And there's no issues about watching this TV show. The content is okay. So some people say it's Bittul Torah. No, the fact of the matter is, if you really need to relax, okay, you're a human being. Sometimes, in order to improve your learning, you got to know when to fold. You got to know when you just sort of say, yeah. You got to sort of know. So, the Kenny Rogers song, right? You got to know when to. Right. You got to know when to. You got to know. I need my relaxation, right? Okay. And actually, it makes me learn better because I'm able to. On the other hand, there's other times where you have to know maybe I am using it. Maybe I really should be watching this, and it is Bittul Torah. It's not a simple answer. It comes down to really knowing yourself. And it doesn't mean that even with all the best intention in the world that you got it right. Okay? That's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu will investigate, But the truth is that in a lot of ways, the more complex you understand life, the more you understand about how difficult it is to make decisions. And you understand, but the thing that hits you about that is I think you have a greater appreciation of the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in those situations. I think that that's a very important concept. And that we live in a world where people try to define good and evil in very black and white terms.
It's weird.
Right, we
live in a world that's like, because it's defined as black and white, there is no good or evil. It's just all
what happens
depending on your point of view, unless it's child pornography or...
No. The fact of the matter is that even there, even with that, I mean, it's unbelievable how people try to justify the terms.
Right.
You know, child pornography is intergenerational love. I mean, and that. Google it. Right. I heard that from someone once. It's like these guys tried to say, you know, it's like my wife, you know, it's like okay. I mean, it's a crazy type of thing. But nowadays we live in a world where everyone tries to justify black and white. Right? It's okay, and the fact is that's really what you're seeing. What you're seeing is every grouping basically defining themselves in such a way as I'm right, you're wrong. I'm going to heaven, you're going to hell, and that's it. And therefore what happens is that and the way they fight among each other is without any respect to the other because I'm right, you're wrong. Right, and there's it's and basically what it does is support dogmatism. It leads to the promotion of dogmatism because you can't actually think, because thinking necessitates, well, is this argument, that argument, right? I mean, thinking really does bring out the Jewish concept and really expands our understanding of God and oneness. But dogmatists, I mean, you dogmatists, it's like right at the root. It's like the issue of faith, right? If you like in a Jewish perspective, it's an interesting idea that the knowledge of the Har Sinai has to precede the issue of the issue of knowing Tov Ra. If there's any question about whether you have real knowledge of Har Sinai, then it does limit your Bechira. So, for example, a Tinnik Shenishba. Tinnik Shenishba is someone who doesn't have, knowledge of Har Sinai. Right? The person who's not brought up from doesn't have knowledge of Har Sinai. So we say that person is not culpable. What does that mean? It means the person doesn't have full Bechira in making decisions of right and wrong based upon Har Sinai because he doesn't know if Har Sinai is really true. Right? So that doubt is significant and understandable. You basically say, yeah, the fact that you have doubt is not an aspect of the Yetzer Hara. The fact you have doubt may be a legitimate understanding of I don't have the information. So the answer to it is knowledge. But you take, especially in fundamentalist religions, right? It all starts with faith, right? Okay, and doubt is the definition of the Yetzer Hara. So you take fundamentalist Christianity, doubt is the devil's work, right? And what you need is absolute faith. Well, yeah, just questioning. Oh, that's the devil. Right? Why? Because questioning actually makes you think about things.
We have a hard balance.
Same with fundamentalist Islam. You have to have faith in Muhammad being the last prophet. If you have doubt about that, then that already is an indication of evil. In Judaism, doubt is understandable. If you let's say to be punished in Jewish law, for example, by a court, you need hasra, you need a warning, right? And then you have to have the Kabbalah's warning in order to get the death penalty. Okay? And then get the death penalty. So I think a person sits there and says, if you do that, it's Chilul Shabbos and there's a death penalty. And you basically say, I don't think it's Chilul Shabbos, or I don't think God said this is prohibited. And that's it. You can't be tried in court. In order to try in court, you have to sit there and say, I know the Torah says not to do this, right, but I'm going to do it anyways. Now you can be tried in court, but you've already accepted the information. Now, the truth is that that's why the argument that's always presented about free choice. It's such a non-Jewish argument. Why is it that there's doubt in the world? Why is it that God is not seen so easily? Because in order for us to have free choice, we can't have absolute knowledge. Like, you ever hear these arguments?
Yeah.
You don't have to have free choice, you have absolute knowledge. Well, guess what? If you don't have absolute knowledge, you can't have free choice. Because once you sit there and say, I have doubt, I don't know if this is usher, then you can't be held culpable for it under the court.
Yeah, but also, well, Judaism also, with doubt, kind of promotes it, right? Because you don't know if you made a bracha, right? Safek bracha salakel, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, on that idea, what you were saying, right?
Well, the fact is that you're dealing with a different type of doubt. The fact of the matter is, at the same point in time, you should not. There is an aspect of not having sfekas in terms of trying to avoid doubt. In other words, it's true, like you're saying, that a lot of halachas deal with you forget or you're not sure. It's a human condition. I have a suffix whether I said this, I didn't say this. So we have a whole variety of things like suffix, brachas, lahakil, right? You don't read a bracha and so forth and so forth. But the truth of the matter is that in that same situation, you should try and remember if you said a bracha, right? You should not be so flippant about brachas that you forget so easily. So I'm giving myself mustard like that a lot of times. It's
in other words, you shouldn't be taking the easy way out.
Right. The fact of the matter is that if I forgot if I said a bracha or not, I'm angry at myself. Okay? But again, I'm human. One of the, there's a balancing of the recognition of your own humanity with the recognition of your own culpability. The fact is we are human beings.
So isn't that the paradox? It's not really fair. So you're saying you can't be judged if you don't know, but yet we can if you will.
You know something? The truth of the matter is
we're stuck in the middle.
The truth is that our culpability, really, the only one who can really tell us how culpable we are is a Kodesh Baruch Hu.
So what about the Torah that gives us an idea of that there is an idea of culpability, and there are ideas.
Yeah, there is, but
what you'll be culpable for.
That's right. The Torah is good. Then why is it that you accept the Torah? Okay, and the fact is that there's why do you accept it to be true, and then the responsibility that goes with that.
So if we do accept that as truth, then you always say, I'm not Hashem, but yet there's ideas in Torah. What happens if you do A, you'll get B. If you do C, you'll get D.
The fact is that yes, there is, and the point is that when I say, the truth is when I say I'm not Hashem, the fact is I also recognize that I'm a human being. Okay, the point is that I'm not the only person who says this. We talk about a Bechira moment. The fact is that someone points out, like for example, if you're in the room with the naked girl, speaking from a male perspective, okay, if you're in the room with the naked girl, right, it might mean a challenge to your Bechira to say no, okay? That may not be the Bechira point. Going into the room where there's a naked girl, that might be your Bechira point, right? In other words, it's like, a lot of people want to say you always have Bechira. The truth of the matter is, it's just psychology. Fact is that if you're in a certain situation, psychologically you may not have the strength to say A, but the truth of the matter is you had the psychological strength not to go into that situation. So the truth is that really defining the Bechira point, I don't know. The truth is that then psychologically, what about your background? What about who you are? I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you assume, if you assume every drive, okay, there's certain people who have real problems with anger, right? Okay, so they get angry. So they think the fact is maybe they don't have as much Bechira. and control over their anger as other people. You don't know. And that's between them and the Kodesh Baruch Hu in terms of ultimate culpability. You should know you have to work on things. There's an interesting point. I think it was Yaakov Weinberg. I remember hearing a shir from once, and he pointed out something very interesting about tshuva. He said, "I'll tell you two cases. Guy's walking down the street, goes into a store. There's chocolate bars there, some with a COR and some without a COR, right? And he buys the one without a COR, right? Needs it. Okay. What does he have to do tshuva? He has to say, I feel bad about this. And next time he goes into the store to have tshuva gemara, to have a whole tshuva according to the Rambam, he has to sit there and say, I'm going to buy the chocolate bar with the COR. Okay, that's one case. There's another case. The guy's in a desert. Okay? There's a piece of non-kosher food there. He hasn't eaten in 36 hours, 48 hours, right? But he's not at sekanas nefashos yet. It's not a question of life-threatening. He's really, really hungry. And there's some non-kosher food there. Okay? But it's like not kosher deraisa, and it's not sekanas nefashos yet. Okay? And he eats it.
Then he would be
he'd be able to eat it, right? So it's not life threatening for him not to eat it. And he eats it, right? Okay, what does he have to do tshuva? He has to be in that situation again, be just as hungry and say, no, I'm not going to eat the non-kosher food. So Rav Yaakov pointed out, he said, listen, in terms of the Avera, who do you think is the worst Avera? Right? The guy who was in the store could have had a kosher chocolate bar, not a kosher chocolate bar, bought the not kosher chocolate bar, right? It was a flippant Avera, right? Okay, so you sit there and say, that's really wrong. The other guy, I understand, he was really, really hungry, so, you can't hold him so wrong for eating the non-kosher food. After all, he didn't eat in 48 hours. Okay. But who has a harder task of tshuva? Right? What?
The hungry guy.
The hungry guy. So he says, sometimes the flippant Avera is a worse Avera, but tshuva on it is easier. And this one, it's a harder Avera. So the truth of the matter is you have to understand the challenges we have, the difficulties, our psychology, and so on and so forth. People are so simple, black and white, so on and so forth. The fact is that there's a psychology. We're all human beings. There's this underlying psychology in how our world works, and so forth and so forth. What I was getting at, though, what I wanted to point out in terms of the oneness of God, is the fact that when we understand the diversity of existence, we really understand the challenges we have. We have to know our strengths, and we have to know the challenges we have. And that's a lot of the problems we have in our world. A lot of people challenge us on our strengths. Therefore, we find that those things which really make up part of what our beings are being put down. Okay? And really they have a place in the Yetzer Tov. On the other hand, we sometimes take our strengths and ignore other values which are contrary to our strengths. Okay, and it really hit me after last week. We have to know, we have to feel good about what we are, and a lot of times people will try to give us musar by putting down what we are. You have to know who you are. Okay, understand that there may be good things to things other people are putting down, and you have to stand with them. On the other hand, you have to know that things which are good in yourself sometimes need musar. Okay? And you have to be able to see both sides. So the truth of the matter is that really creates a dichotomy. Right? You have to know I stand for this, and there's good that I stand for this. On the other hand, there's an argument against it. And you have to be able to balance it. And there's too many people in the world who don't have that idea of balance. And they'll come up to you and attack you based upon their lack of balance because they don't want you to be balanced, they want you to be like them. And there's other people who they themselves don't have any balancing. Yeah.
So there's also an idea that I find that and I think I've spoken to you about this before, that within the balancing, to really take a objective look at something, you really have to learn it. You have to really delve into it. So to actually spend all the time balancing both sides and learning
the fact is,
it can.
The fact is, you also have to recognize subjective realities.
So how do you balance? This is what the whole. And I better get this before I leave. How do you balance subjectivity with objectivity, with learning and growth? And
the fact is that it's not a simple job, but you also have to know who you are. The fact is,
so if you don't care about objectivity, about
no, that's the whole point. It's not that you don't care. The fact of the matter is, you also have to recognize who you are.
Some people go out there and are the fighters and are the ones. Sorry,
right.
Are the ones who argue. They're the ones who are the Kiruv masters who say, "Listen, you're an atheist. Let's hear your point of view. Let's argue." Some people are.
Yeah. But the fact is that let me point to you.
Some people got there without learning about it.
You're never going to know everything. Okay?
No, that's impossible.
So exactly. So the point is what you learn is going to be an outgrowth of your own being. There's always subjectivity. The only thing is for you to recognize that there's always something beyond you. See, what always hits me is not that you always know everything or whatever, but you recognize that there's things you don't know, and you recognize that you're doing what you think is best for you to the best of your ability. Okay. You're not... Your job is not to come across with the absolute truth. Okay. Your job is to come across with an understanding of what you think is right, with a recognition that included in that process is your own subjectivity. There's a tremendous difference between a person who says, "Listen, Lithiani is deity. According to the property of my thought, according to this is what I do, this is what I think is correct, and this is what I'm going to do." Okay? I'll approach you with teaching you. I'll approach you with trying to teach you, so. But at the same point in time, I'm going to have to recognize that you have to make a decision for yourself. I've been in many situations where a person, where I'll sit there and say, I hold like this and so forth, and the person holds differently, and I'll respect his right to hold differently. Right. Okay? And sometimes people find it so strange that I'm so respectful of their position. Because the fact is, my job isn't trying to push you and tell you that I'm right and everyone else is wrong. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to sit there and say, listen, what's important is that you find your path and what's right for you. Now, that's not a subjective, that's not a relative morality. That's what's right with you within Torah, and my job is to teach, to share, to work with you at the same point in time, to challenge you. But that's part of the process, and you should be challenging yourself as you build up yourself. Okay? The thing that hits me is when I challenge people, it's like for them to grow in their own way.
Right. Sure.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.